Welcome to Sports Tonight on a Thursday night. I'm sports producer Scott Pennyman here with Frederick Campagna. I feel like you've been here all week, Fred.
Well, just yesterday, but
It
glad
feels like
it's been all
I
week.
feel like it's all week, man. You've been, you've been here all the time, man. It's all good, though.
No,
I've been here all week.
anytime. Happy to be here. Woke up this morning, thought it was Friday, so we're working to get toward the end of the work week here.
I see how it can happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a grind, but anytime you get to slide in and do sports, it makes makes the day go quicker, right?
No, definitely.
Let's jump right in.
All right, let's
NBA
go.
Finals, Game 1 tonight. Man, the Denver Nuggets have been sitting around for like a year waiting to play, man. It seems like they eliminated the Lakers months ago.
Yeah, it does, really. Rest versus rust.
Right, and
Which is it going to be?
That's going to be my question. I mean, when you consider NBA players are more so conditioned, especially this time of year, to play games pretty much every other day, no more than 2 days off.
Yeah.
Do you think this long rest will be a problem for the Nuggets?
I don't actually. I think they'll be all right. I think the Heat needed whatever little rest they could get after that Celtics series was a tough one, physical, all that. Now they have to go into the thin air in Colorado and try to deal with that. If that doesn't affect everybody. I went to school at University of Colorado, never affected me.
Oh yeah, you're Buffalo.
But the fact that the game is in Denver, I think, helps the Nuggets a lot in that whole rest versus rest, because the crowd's going to be behind them. If they had to go into a hostile environment, might be a little different story, having not played for however many weeks it's been. It's been what, 10 days, 11 days, something like that?
I think it's been like 10 or 11
Yeah.
days, it feels like.
Yeah.
I think last Monday. So
what are you thinking on this series?
You know what? I'm going to go with what I've kind of the whole time. I mean, pretty much every time we have a show and we talk about the NBA, I say the Denver Nuggets have pretty much had the cleanest path here as far as their team, how they're built, how they play. Everything is just so clean. Seems like a relatively low turnover team. They play the game the right way. They hit their shots. They have an all-time, well, I don't know if he's going to be an all-time great player, but one of the best players in the game today, if not the best player in the game today, Jokic.
Yeah.
I think it all lines up for Denver to win the series, right? I mean, conventional wisdom, at least for me, I would think they win this series in about 6 games. But the Miami Heat, man, they've just defied all logic, right? I mean, just to even be here in this position, I mean, knocking off the number 1 and 2 seeds in the Eastern Conference, after seemingly they barely even made the.
Take a step back on that. So this is the Miami Heat are running it back with the same team that they had last year.
That part is true.
And that team went to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
True,
So my point is that they didn't have the best regular season, but should we really be that surprised that Miami's in the finals?
Well, I think on the surface, no, because like you said, I mean, these are the same guys that's been making this run for a few years now. So,
Right.
I mean, I think from that aspect, but this team was almost dead. I mean, they were a couple minutes away from not even making the playoffs.
Now that part's true. That part's true. They lost to the Hawks, and then they were down 3 points with 4 minutes to go to the Bulls.
They were in trouble.
Squeaked that one out. So they were, almost 2 months into their vacation, or a month and a half into their vacation at this point. But they're not. And now they're playing really well. They play cohesively. I think it's just a very interesting clash of styles here and strengths. The Nuggets are a very difficult team to defend because of the way Jokic plays.
Yeah.
It's rare to have a big man that has the ball in his hands facing the basket as much as he does.
But look, I think if there's any team in the NBA that can defend him or at least make him work hard, it seems to be the Miami Heat, because, I mean, they face, the way they play defense, just how they scramble. I mean, they face Giannis in these playoffs. They did a good job, I think, for the most part, against Tatum and Brown in that series, as far as stopping them from getting to where they wanted to go.
But that's the point. Like, those guys all want to get somewhere. Giannis wants to get to the rim. Tatum, it's same thing. Jaylen Brown puts his head down. He wants to go.
Jokic can do it all, though, right?
They Jaylen Brown was simple. Just make him go left, and he'll give you the ball. But anyway, Jokic is a little different in that he can do so many different things. Like, he doesn't really often seem to really want to go to the basket, so he can hit his little fade, his little step backs.
That's
He's just he's a little bit like Dirk in his offensive game, like just the amount of different ways that he can beat you. Can beat you down low, yeah, but he can also beat you in the mid range. He can beat you from 3-point land, but he's just such a better passer than any big man we've seen recently. So if they can solve the Jokic problem, I think they'll be all right.
That's a big problem.
It is a very big problem. Another big problem that they may have. I don't know if Gabe Vincent's up to the task and Kyle Lowry, or the guy who used to be Kyle Lowry, is up to the task because let's face it, he's looking like he's in his mid-30s. He did not have a great series, I didn't think, against the Celtics.
But it does look like they're going to get Tyler Hero back for game 2.
Okay,
that's a big help.
but same. I'm not talking about offensively. I'm talking about defensively and dealing with, Denver's number 2 there, Murray.
Jamal Murray.
Yeah, Jamal Murray. So, if they can handle – so basically what I'm saying is, like, the strength of the Nuggets offensively seems to be a little bit of a weakness for the Heat, because if Bam's going to have to come out and play Jokic way out there, that really affects their ability to protect the rim, because they're not a big team aside from Bam. So then if Jokic is drawing Bam out of the paint, then that allows Jeff Green or Aaron Gordon or some of these other guys to get involved, cutting to the basket or whatever, and go through. They're not going to have to deal with the size maybe that the Lakers had or some of these other teams. So and then Jamal Murray, being a guard, 2-guard like that, a very true 2-guard. He seems to be more of a 2-guard, less of a wing type of player. Like the Celtics had wings, but Smart was their 2-guard, and Smart, when he would go, he was their point guard, but at times he would run it more like a 2-guard, and he would get down low on Gabe Vincent, and it was over. Like, he'd get down low on Vincent or Lowry, and if Murray's going to play that, he should be able to do some damage.
Yeah, I mean, and that's an interesting point you brought up, too, about Bam Adebayo having to play Jokic on the perimeter, because we saw a lot of that in the Lakers series. Just remember how much of a menace Anthony Davis was in the first 2 playoff series as far as staying around the rim, blocking shots. I mean, he terrorized the Grizzlies. He terrorized the Warriors in that series. When it came to the Denver series, it wasn't as easy for him to terrorize things because he had to kind of follow Jokic a little bit.
So the Heat play a lot of zone, and so maybe they'll do that, and hopefully, if they – now, the zone is only good if the other team doesn't figure it out. Once the other team figures it out, and there's different variations on it that Spoelstra throws on it, and at times it frustrated the Celtics, but at other times the Celtics just went right through it, and it was just 2 or 3 possessions, and like, okay, this isn't working, and they would switch back. Now, on the flip side, a couple of things that Miami does pretty well. So Bam and Jimmy, right, Butler, Butler could be a tough matchup for the Nuggets.
Very.
Is who's up to the task of dealing with Butler. And Jokic, for as good as he is not a great defender. So do they put Aaron Gordon on Bam?
I heard on, when I was watching ESPN earlier, they said that they'll probably do a lot of Aaron Gordon. That'll kind of be his primary matchup. I'm sure Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will see a lot of time on him too, along with Bruce Brown off the bench. So they do have some bodies to throw at him, but let's be real. I mean, Jimmy Butler, he's a good to great player, and when he's on his game, you can really only hope to really slow him down to contain him, but I mean, or make him work hard. But he's gonna get his buckets. That's why he's Jimmy Buckets.
Right, exactly. And he will get other guys involved. Getting Harrow back would definitely help.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if the Heat make it a 6 or 7 game series. I wouldn't be shocked if they won it, but I would put money. Not legal here in Georgia, of course, but I would put money on the Nuggets to win this. So they're kind of a prohibitive favorite anyway. But what do you think?
So let's take the next step here. Let's say the Heat find a way to win. Let's say they defy sort of, I guess you could say, the odds or the way they've done up to this point and kind of surprised. And let's say they find a way to get past Denver and win the NBA championship. Where do you think that puts Erik Spoelstra all time as far as coaches, as far as all-time great coaches?
Yeah, so the question is Spoelstra one of the best ever?
Let's say top.
My question to the question is, like, how long is that list that we're going on?
So let's go top
Throw it out there.
Okay,
top
so
what?
I want to say
he's
top.
not top 5.
So I want to say top 5, but what about top 10?
No. Yeah, he's top. He's probably already top 10.
So let's go a little higher.
I-
Let's go top 7-ish.
I was looking at the list, right, of NBA coaches that have won finals, and it's not as long or as deep of a list as you would think,
No.
just because you have a couple of coaches, 4 coaches, 5 really at the top that have won
Multiple, right?
almost as many as the other guys combined,
Yeah.
right? Phil Jackson's won 11.
Wow.
So, it's hard to not put him at the top.
Yeah, Red Arbor.
Red's going to go probably second at 9, and then Pop is in there, and Riley. John Kunla, I'm not sure who that is. That's just me not knowing much, but
Yeah, that's going way back.
and then Kerr, right?
And, and that's that's the territory where I was thinking about Spoelstra, right?
Okay,
I mean,
so Kerr's got 4 though.
that's true.
Spoelstra has 2. Spoelstra has 2, and both of them came with LeBron and Bosch and D Wade, right?
Well, right, and that's where I'm going to try to pitch for Spoelstra here. So just think about it here. So let's say he won those first 2. Obviously, he had D Wade and Bosch and LeBron with that team. So now, just a few years later, well, I guess more than a few years after all those guys leave. So with this edition of the Miami Heat, he gets one done with Jimmy Butler, who most people coming into the season probably wouldn't even consider maybe like a fringe top 15 player. If he finds a way with 2 different editions of the Miami Heat to win NBA championships, that would give him 3 NBA titles.
Yep.
And then with 2 different brands of the Miami Heat, I mean, just think about it.
So I think we're going to
Kerr,
end up agreeing on this,
Yeah.
and that he's 7, right? So you put him above or below Kerr?
Right now, I would have to give it to Steve Kerr right now.
Uh-huh. I agree with that because I think that there are other coaches and other organizations that could have not won with Steph, Clay, and Draymond Green. Like I don't think it was a slam dunk that they won because they also played great team basketball. When they won those championships.
I agree with that.
So there was a style of play there. Steph is not really like a prototypical NBA star in that, he's the greatest shooter, sure, of this generation,
True.
but he's a little bit small. He could be a defensive liability or looked at as one, even though he's got quick hands, but he's not the biggest guy. So I actually give Kerr some credit for winning 4 with that group. So then I would put Spoelstra right behind that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, so I think if you're just in an arguing mood, right? You and your buddies are sitting around, and one of your buddies takes Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
And if you want to argue for Erik Spoelstra, I would say this: all of Steve Kerr's championships are attached to the great Steph Curry. All of Phil Jackson obviously with Kobe
he's
and
attached.
LeBron.
He's always
and
going to be. He's attached to Kobe
right.
and Shaq.
And when you figure
those
if
guys.
Erik Spoelstra gets a championship here, that's his championships aren't necessarily tied to all-time great players, especially if he gets one with Jimmy Butler. I mean, to me, I think this season, without question, will be his all-time best coaching job.
Yeah, but there's a lot of guys that got one, right? So you're saying that the other coaches got multiple with stars.
Multiple with the same stars. Like just think about it. Like Greg Popovich, he has all 5 of his.
Spoelstra's
with Tim Duncan.
multiples come with a group that I think some people could even make the case underachieved.
I would say to an extent, but I don't think coming into this season
Not one,
that there
not
was
two,
a lot of people.
not 3,
Yeah, well,
not 4.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would say that's probably an underachievement, 2 out of 4. But I just feel like coming into this season, to me, that would kind of make up for that. Because if you win a championship this year with a team that many thought was maybe a top 5 or 6 team, but very few people thought this team would win an NBA championship even coming into the season,
Right.
and then you take them from the 8th spot, they will have knocked off 2 number 1 seeds if they win a championship and a number 2 seed.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No,
That's something to think about.
It elevates him a little bit. To me, it doesn't put him above Kerr.
Okay.
Kerr's got 4. If they both had 3, I think it would be a better argument. But Kerr's got 4. He's coached 500 fewer games than Spoelstra, so he has that going for him as well. And, like Popovich as well. Like Popovich, I think we're not even arguing there. I think he's clearly above. Yeah, he had Tim Duncan.
Yeah,
But again, it's like there are great players that have played and never gotten a championship.
That's true.
Right?
Hey, man.
Will Giannis get more than than he's gotten. Will Embiid ever get one?
Look, I'm with you.
So-
I don't put him above Steve Kerr or Greg Popovich or any of those guys who have 4 or 5 championships. I'm just saying if they win this, that could be a discussion.
He's a great
to be had.
coach.
Right.
I think we can agree on that. And I would slot him in at 7 if they win this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk our last bit of NBA
I
finals
might also
here.
already have him at 7. Because he is like the best of the guys who have 2. But anyway, go ahead. Let's talk about the best NBA finals. All right, this is bound to be a little discussion.
Again, ESPN has their list of their top 25 NBA finals performances. I don't know how much I'm loving their list. I mean, there's been a lot of great, but I'm just kind of peeping it out here. I mean, they're number 1. They have LeBron. And look, Lord knows, I love this because I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, all right? So I watched all these finals. Every finals game they appeared in, I was glued to the television as much as anyone. So
can we preface this, though, at least by saying that this is based on Hollinger's, one of his statistical models, so it's a game score.
Right.
So there's no eyeball test in here.
Right.
This is literally off the stats. But go ahead. What's number 1?
So he's giving you LeBron James in Game 6 against the Golden State Warriors in 2016, which was the Cavs' comeback in that series. They were down 3-1, and they came back and won that series in a Game 7. But that Game 6, which I do remember, I mean, the Cavs dominated that game. LeBron James had a pretty dominant night. 41 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds, 4 steals, 3 blocks.
Filled it up for sure.
That's pretty much a boss effort,
Yeah.
So I guess that brings me to the question: you can give yours first, and I'll give mine. What's your top finals single game performance that you've seen, or that you can think of?
Well, I can't say that I may have seen it live. I don't remember. I was young at the time. But I think for me, Magic Johnson, when Kareem against the 76ers, when Kareem had, and it was a closeout game in Philadelphia, Kareem had sprained his ankle. Magic is a rookie, comes in, plays center in the NBA Finals, and I think he went for 42 and 15. And famously said, when he got on the plane, never fear, EJ is here, to his teammates, which I love that. I wish that, I feel like Jimmy Butler has that type of personality, that type of mentality. I wish that there were some other guys in the league who could say stuff like that and back it up. But yeah, so he went 42, 15, and 7 assists.
That's big time.
And that, so to put that in perspective, that comes in at number 8 on this list. And one thing I will notice, Scott, is that this list seems to be skewed toward more recent finals
you think?
performances. Yeah. Well, the LeBron one goes back 7 years, but then it's got a couple of games that he's got Jimmy Butler 2 games at 3 and 4. Game 3 in the 2020 finals and Game 5 in the 2020 finals. Among other things, those were bubble games. So that championship I give an asterisk to anyway for the Lakers. They didn't play it in front of anybody.
You giving them the asterisk, man?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. That's a quarter of a championship.
I wasn't even going to go there. But
no, 100%.
Okay.
But what's yours?
So my top NBA Finals performance, I'm going with the 1998 NBA Finals. Chicago Bulls versus the Utah Jazz. That was Michael's last season with the Bulls.
Yep.
Game 6.
The flu game?
No.
Okay.
That was the year after. Game 6. It was Michael's final game as a Bull. Scottie Pippen goes down early in that game in the first quarter. Back injury. He doesn't even think that he's returning. He thinks he's gone. Bulls are up 3-2, obviously with a chance to clinch it. And they were really just hanging on that whole game. I thought Michael Jordan in that game played one of the best basketball games I've ever seen. And it's not necessarily – look, the stats were there. He had 45 points, all that stuff. But I think the bigger part of the game is just at every moment, at 35 years old, at every moment in that game, he kept his team in that game until the very end. And then he really just needed Scottie Pippen on the floor as a decoy late in the game. And then, obviously, he hits the game-winning shot over Brian Russell. They win the game. He, at that time, goes off into the sunset as a 6-time NBA champion. But just watching that game from start to finish.
Push off on that shot?
He pushed off a little bit. But as Bob Costas said, it wasn't a real push-off. No. It was the equivalent of a waiter helping someone to their table at a restaurant, right? He's kind of just eased them on over there. But anyway, look.
Guided them into the offseason.
Yeah, he guided them right into the offseason. But look, I thought that was just a great performance just based on not necessarily the numbers. The numbers were great without question.
Yeah.
But I think just more than that, the magnitude of that game, Michael's age at that time, and how he just carried that team over the finish line, to me, that was the most impressive NBA Finals performance.
Yeah, so you're taking, a performance by one of the all-time greats at the end or closer to the end of his career.
For sure.
I took an all-time performance by, one of the best players ever at the very start of his career.
For sure.
I think it's hard to argue both of those. And to your point, Scott, it's the eye test, right?
Yeah,
so there's more to it than exactly what's in the stat sheet. And I do, obviously remember that game that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it was, he took over a game. And maybe statistically, it wasn't one of those top 25 performances because, if I'm not mistaken, that one's not even on that list.
No, it's not. Which I thought that
again
was crazy.
Because it's like it's a statistical model,
yeah,
right?
I get it.
But in terms of what he did for that team for that game, it's hard to beat that performance for sure. And this one's definitely more skewed toward some statistical stuff, right?
Yeah.
So. You got an Allen Iverson game on there. You've got a Charles Barkley game on there.
That had to be Iverson's game 1 against the Lakers.
Multiple Giannis games on there.
For sure.
And this may just be setting up, this may be an ESPN thing where they set this up knowing that who is probably going to rocket to the top of this list in this finals upcoming. Jokic? Yeah, because he's just going to fill the stat sheet so much. He's just going to... He will. So technically, and by the way that this model evaluates a game, he may go to number 1. And we already know Jimmy Butler's already 3 and 4.
Yeah. Good point.
But I also don't view Butler was good in the Celtics series, but he wasn't.
He wasn't all-time great.
No, he wasn't all-time great. That's my point. Okay.
Yeah. So. That's cool. So I tell you what, let's just before we get out the door, let's talk about some football here, right?
Let's go.
So
Always.
Avalon Sports came out with their preseason All-SEC teams.
Okay.
And you could probably imagine out of their first team, second team, third team, 15 UGA dogs appeared on those teams.
Okay.
So I guess my question to you is, why is the rest of the SEC even going to show up before the SEC championship game to play UGA, right? Because I think just by looking at the schedule like we've looked at in the past, looking at the amount of talent that's on UGA's roster, looking at the fact that they've won the last 2 national championships, they didn't lose a game last year, right? I mean, does UGA, are we pretty much just should we just rush them right to the playoffs right now? I'm just saying.
You got to look at who's coming up next, right? Alabama had 12.
Yeah.
So that's only a few less. And then LSU, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Missouri each hit double-digit picks. Now, I did notice when I was looking at this, Scott, that this is fourth team as well. First, second, third,
They have a fourth team?
No,
Okay.
they have a fourth team. But I will also note there are no dogs on the fourth team.
Oh, well.
So there are 87 players total on the first 3 teams, and 15 of them are dogs. That's 17%, nearly 20% of the players on the first 3 teams, all SEC, are dogs. When you look at how many teams are in the SEC, they should have about 6% if they were equally spread.
Right.
And that of course includes Vanderbilt in there, which they're probably not throwing too many guys on these teams. Although I'll look at this, maybe they have a specialist on there. Who knows? But and again, some of these are specialists, so you're only going to get one of those specialists on. You're not going to get multiple specialists. That's for sure. One at each position. So a couple other things that did stand out to me, and obviously the dogs are loaded, but Alabama 12 and double digits from LSU. First team offense quarterback, KJ Jefferson from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Second team offense quarterback is Will Rogers from Mississippi State.
He's pretty good. Yep.
Third team is Jaden Daniels from LSU. So I'm really curious to see what LSU does this year.
Yeah, that's a team to watch for me because Brian Kelly, look, I mean, he was joked around a lot about when the year started. They talked about, they kind of laughed and said, he's got something else coming if he thinks he's going to come to the SEC
Yeah.
and from Notre Dame.
Right.
He actually did a good job last year.
Yeah.
So I think that when you look at, that's one of those teams I think that you really want to keep an eye on because, you know, he did some good things with them last year. I think a lot better than many people thought he would do. So now in his second year in that program, those players' second year in that program, Daniels was there last year.
Yeah.
He's a second year under BK.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll
Right.
see.
And I also think that like from his perspective, maybe he couldn't have scripted it better. Like I don't think he liked the way they struggled early in the year.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, you know, right from the opening, you know, grabbing the mic and having the
Right, I knew it
accent,
was gonna happen.
you know, to that to
was he
some
thinking?
of the social media stuff he did with the players and whatever, he was clowned a little bit for that. Then they did not start out well at all. They did not play well early, but gave the fan base and certainly the team some hope by the end of the year. That helps to get a lot of buy-in from the guys that are there.
Sure.
And it was not so much that you can't really have a very hungry team going into the next year because they really didn't accomplish anything last year
true.
except for playing better near the end of the year. So that's my team to watch too in the SEC this year
sure.
because he's a very good coach. You know, like him or not, he always wins.
He does his job.
You know,
man.
he does. And so, you know, we don't even necessarily know who the Dogs quarterback is going to be. You know, there will be.
I
Yeah,
think
they're
they think it
favorites,
does right.
for sure.
I think no matter which guy they go with, I think that he's just expected to be the driver of the bus, right? You know what I'm saying? Just get the
Right.
ball in the hands of your your preseason SEC wide receivers.
Yeah.
Those guys are on the list too. So yeah, I don't think. In the spirit of Stetson Bennett when he first took over, I don't think a lot will be expected of the UGA quarterback. He won't have to go out there and win games. He'll just have to get the ball into the right places to the guys who will win the games.
I guess my point with me saying that was that it's hard to give a preseason award when you don't know who the quarterback's going
That's
to
true.
be.
That's true.
But postseason, first, second, third, fourth team, I've never heard of a fourth team, but first, second, third team,
Yeah.
all
that's weird.
SEC, wouldn't really surprise you if whoever's under center for the Dogs is on one of those teams,
Cool.
right? So
Right.
that's where it becomes a little bit harder. So the guys that are no doubt starters for their team have a better chance of getting on those preseason rankings. But yeah, the Dogs are loaded, but clearly, you know, there are a few other teams that definitely have some talent for sure. So should be fun.
So
Can't
just
wait.
real quick, what's on your mind for it?
I don't know. Ratings for the NBA and the NHL, and you know what they're going to look like. I
the
can't
finals.
imagine they're going to be spectacularly good. You know, particularly for the NHL, getting the Vegas, Knights and the Florida Panthers. That's going to be tough. And that's
Yeah.
That's a league that could use a little boost. You know, they
true.
could have used an original six team or two in there, a big market team in there. So that's going to hurt them, no doubt. And it's the NBA Finals. We'll see. I mean, I'm not overly interested. It'll be on in the background, but I'm not going to.
Everybody wants the Lakers and Celtics, right? I mean, everybody wants the same old.
Well, not
blue
just
bloods,
it's interesting. I
and the
saw an
stars,
article
too.
today. Yeah, it's not just the for ratings. Also, bettors. Gamblers wanted a different matchup.
Yeah.
So it's they'll probably just bet anyway. What's on your mind?
So one thing I did see from yesterday, Brad Stevens came out for the Celtics, and, for your team, and said that Joe Mazzulla is, they plan on him sticking around for next year. He's the guy. I don't think that was ever a question because now you've kind of made that bed and you have to lie in it. So I don't think that he was going anywhere, regardless. But he's a young coach, and I think he's I guess I won't say he's the right guy to be there, but at this point, he's kind of the only guy, right?
Yeah, well, no, they could have gone in different directions. I
Yeah,
mean, there's still, there's still some guys out there. I mean, Coach Bud's still out there, right? Or did Coach Bud get picked up? I'm not even sure. But anyway, there are some veteran guys out there. I mean, Monty Williams just got a ton of money from the Pistons. So there are definitely, some veterans out there you could have went to. I like that they're keeping him. He may lose a few more assistants, 2 or 3 more assistants down to Ime's staff in Houston. So it will be, you can say this, a couple of years from now, that staff will be what Joe wanted.
That's
so
true.
that excuse of like you losing Stoudemire, losing Hardy, and all that, that will be no more. All right.
Yeah. So That's been Sports Tonight on a Thursday night. Fred, thanks
Yeah.
for stopping on by again. It was a good show tonight. We got a lot of good content in here.
Yeah,
so
we definitely did.
see you guys tomorrow.
All right, have a good one.
Later.
See ya.
Flip the switch real quick. Got it 1 second.
Somebody call.
Jason, people are
I made it with 1 second. Did the switch?